Welcome to the Improve Work podcast. I'm your host, Daniela Tancău, an HR consultant helping entrepreneurs and team leaders build motivated, high-performing teams. Here we talk about leadership, employee motivation, and other topics that enhance your ability to lead. Whether you are an entrepreneur with a team, a business owner planning to build one, or a leader in a company. You'll gain practical advice and insights from me and my guests, experts in the field and entrepreneurs who share their leadership experiences. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on every episode. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi everyone, welcome to the Improve Work podcast. Thank you for being here. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and rate it to help us reach more people and build better workplaces. Okay, today's episode guest is Scott Siff, and we talk about one major problem that older people encounter. They struggle to find jobs because they are not taken into consideration after a certain age. They apply, but their applications are not even viewed. And Scott created a platform to help this category of people find jobs more easily and connect with hiring companies. Employers who use the platform are free of age discrimination because when they join, they already know that the platform is dedicated to people over 55. And as Scott explains in this episode, older people searching for jobs are not a sporadic category, but quite a large one, and they can bring a lot of value to a workplace. And most probably, they are not searching for growth opportunities anymore and are stable in their jobs. Age discrimination is a problem for everyone because we all get older if we are lucky, right? Being attentive to this issue and being objective in the hiring processes, including not following age stereotypes, which are subjective, of course, will hopefully help remove this discrimination. The platform that Scott created in 2025 is called the Pivoters, and you'll find a link in the description of this episode. The idea for it was inspired by his father's own struggle to find meaningful work in his 70s. He saw how frustrating and unsuccessful that process was, and he decided to create this platform to help other people who happen to be over 55 find jobs, and also to help employers find these often overlooked candidates. Scott is also the founder and managing partner at Quadrant Strategies, a marketing research firm that helps companies around the world navigate their most pressing challenges and opportunities. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you. I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you, Daniela.
I'm glad you are here. So we'll talk about the difficulties that older people encounter when they try to find a job, and also we'll talk about your platform because your platform is dedicated to these people to help them make go through this process easier. Can you tell us a little bit about this platform, how this platform helps people, and why did you start this platform?
Yeah, great. So the platform is called pivoters.com, and it is focused on helping people 55 and over find jobs. And we're focusing on that age group in particular because they are often left out of the other major job matching platforms that already exist. The average age on the major job matching platforms, the other online job boards, is about 28 to 30 years old. So when a 60-year-old or 65-year-old, no matter how capable they are, show up on one of those platforms, they look out of place. And the employers must be thinking to themselves, well, I've just seen a bunch of 30-year-olds. Now I have a 65-year-old. That's weird. There must be something off about that person. And so we're trying to provide a place where the employees know that the employers who are on the platform understand all that the people in that age group, that people 55 and over, have to offer a workplace. And we can talk more about that. And they're there knowing that. And so they're ready to hire those people. And they won't be out of place, the people in that age group. I started the platform, which was your other part of your question, when I was going through this process with my own father, who wanted to switch careers. He was even a little bit older in his 70s, but he was amazing, really strong physically, mentally. He was somebody that any employer should have been really happy to have as an employee. And so he asked if I could help him look for a job. And I'm a tech savvy person and I'm a business person. I said, yeah, that should be really easy to do. So I started looking, and I was quickly very frustrated and disappointed that there were not only very few resources to help people in an efficient way in my dad's age group or even 55 and over get a job, but also there was a huge amount of bias, as I mentioned, on the existing platforms for finding jobs. And so that caused me to start looking into this issue more. And the more I looked into it, the more I saw that this was a really important need in society, um, both for the people themselves, but also for businesses and for the economy overall. And I can talk about any of those, but those were all what prompted me to start the site.
Can you mention in which field did you look for a job for your father?
I never even was able to get that specific because I was just looking for any field to start out with, and it was
Mhm,
very hard. There are very high-end, very expensive like consultants that you could hire who
mhm,
will help you in a very personal way, but there's not a an automated job board place that welcomes people in that age group. So that's what I'm talking about more. And so those kind of platforms, the ones that exist for younger people, cover all kind of jobs from very high-end jobs down to frontline workers.
mhm. You mentioned that employers are looking for people or give attention to candidates that are up to 30 or maybe more, um 30 years around this age. What about those who are around 40 and 50? Because they're, I think that it's hard for them to find a job too.
Yeah, it's hard for lots of people to find jobs when they're looking, but the people who are in their 40s, for instance, and even their younger 50s, but especially I think you're asking about their 40s, maybe their older 30s, they won't look so out of place on the existing job platforms. The average age is 28 to 30, but that means you'll get some
Mhm,
people in their 30s and even their younger 40s. It's really starting when you get into your 50s and especially into your 60s, where today people are in great shape and very strong physically and mentally and everything else. And those are the people who can't find jobs.
mhm. Can you explain a little bit what are the reasons for which employers tend to avoid candidates who passed a certain age?
Yeah, there's a few misconceptions. Let me start out actually by saying that the impact of ageism is very strong. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of it, but two-thirds of people 55 and over say they have experienced or seen ageism, discrimination against people in that age group, in their own personal experience. So it's a very prominent problem. Now, the reason it actually exists is a little bit of a quirk of the retirement age. So let me do a little bit of history. It's kind of interesting, I think. So the idea of retirement started in the early 20th century, and it was written into law in the United States with the Social Security Act, which was passed in 1935 as part of the New Deal legislation. And it was part of just pumping money into the economy to help get the United States out of the Depression. But in the Social Security Act, when Social Security was passed, it established a retirement age of 65 years old. It's interesting, this age is still about the same. Now, the interesting part about that, set a retirement age of 65, the average life expectancy at that time was 61. So
Mhm.
for most people, retirement was a myth. Like they weren't going to live to retire at that point in 1935. So today, the retirement age is still roughly 65, but the life expectancy is in your mid 80s. So instead of life expectancy being younger than the retirement age, life expectancy is now a couple of decades older than the retirement age.
Yes.
The problem that has caused, there's a couple problems. The big one that we're talking about now is that it has kind of frozen in people's minds the idea that people should be retiring at age 65. It's not true. When they were supposed to be retiring at 65, they're only living to 61. If you took that same kind of calculation to today, when people live into their mid 80s, the retirement age ought to be in their late 80s. It would be the same kind of analogy as when Social Security was passed and when the retirement age was established. It means that our conceptions of how old people are good workers is about 100 years out of date. We are thinking in terms of a life expectancy that was true in 1935, not in 2026. So we need to bring our understanding of what people can do in their 50s, 60s, and 70s up to the modern era, move it forward a century. So that's a big problem. It's also, by the way, that gap is also the reason that the Social Security system is going bankrupt because at the time in 1935, almost nobody got Social Security. They almost all died. To
Mhm.
be blunt about it, they almost all died before they reached Social Security. Now people are in Social Security that range for 20, 30 years. And so it's overtaxing the Social Security system. That's why the current estimates are that it's going to be out of money in just a few years. And that when that happens, there will be automatic cuts that will come into play. So the government doesn't seem to be focusing on it at the moment, but it's a really big problem that's going to make the economics for people in that age group even worse.
Mhm. And I think there is also a gap between generations. There are less younger people than older people, and this create an imbalance.
For sure. The baby boomers, which is the biggest generation, has moved into that age range. And it also, as you're saying, it means the ratio of people who are younger who have to pay into Social Security to support the current retirees, that ratio is off. So there's not enough people who are young paying to support all the people who are older. Plus, they're having to support them for 30 years in some cases instead of for almost no years when it was passed.
So
Security.
if a person has 54 or 60, 55 years, it's almost impossible to find a job to be hired.
It is very hard. And I've talked to a lot of people in that age range, and they're almost despairing that they will ever be able to get another job, even though they might live for 35 more, 40 more years in some cases. That's a really long time, and there's a lot of problems with that. Let me do a couple of those because I think it's really interesting. So, of course, there's the economic issue that people who are going to live 30 years, that they don't have money. They really need the money. The median savings for retirement today, the median savings that people put away for their retirement is $50,000. 50,000. The estimates of the financial experts are that you need about $2 million.
Oh,
So it's an enormous gap, which means that they don't have money. They're going to live in poverty. They're going to
mhm.
basically be living off Social Security, although that might not even be here at the same level in just a few years. So the economics are terrible for people who really need the money, except for the very, very small percent who have actually saved enough money, the $2 million, which almost nobody can afford for retirement. Secondly, it's way better for your health. People who continue working into that age group live as long as 7.5 years longer than people who retire. That's amazing. You can eat all your healthy stuff and exercise your whole life and whatever because you want to live a long, healthy life. The best thing you can do is keep working. That's the best way
Right.
you can live a long and healthy life. Of course, with that, life expectancy also means you're healthier. Your rates of depression are less than half if you keep working compared to retire. When you retire, you get cut off from social interaction. You lose your kind of sense of structure in your day. You lose your sense of purpose in your life and people get depressed, they decline in health, and they die much earlier.
Yes, I read about studies that says that if you retire, you have more chances to die.
Yeah, much higher. That's
Hmm.
right. It's a
Hmm.
big problem.
And do you think that in the marketplace there are jobs for older people because they have experience, and sometimes I think a large majority of them need jobs where they can use that experience. So there are higher jobs, and I don't know if there are enough job offers for them. Are there?
So it's really interesting. That's kind of the economic part that was one of the reasons I founded Pivoters. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that today in the US, there are 7.5 million jobs that are unfilled. They're just sitting there, 7.5 million jobs.
Mhm.
So what's going on? There's both a worker supply issue, and there's a process issue, kind of an infrastructure problem. Let me do the first one first. The US economy has been driven for years to be stronger than the European, Japanese, and other economies because of population growth. They have shrinking populations. We have growing population. That's why the US economy, one of the main reasons the US economy has always been strong and growing. Now, the two engines for population growth in the US have both ended. It's a huge problem for the US economy that is not really getting pulled together. The first engine, which is this one is getting pressed, is immigration.
Mhm.
Immigration has been shut off, completely shut off. In fact, 2025, last year, was one of the first years in American history, one of the few years in American history, where we had net negative immigration. More people left the country than came in. That's a huge problem for the economy, for businesses. It's one of the reasons we have 7.5 million unfilled jobs. The other driver of population growth, other than immigration, has been birth rates. The US has been lucky to have much higher birth rates. Today, I think a very underreported story is that the US birth rate now is 1.6 births per woman. You need to have replacement just to hold your population even on births. You need 2.2 births per woman. So our birth rates now are kind of in the middle of the pack for Europe. We are at a sharply shrinking population looking at birth rates, and immigration is no longer helping. That's the kind of demographic issue that is the reason that there's all these unfilled jobs in the country, that there's just not enough workers to fill them, and the problem's going to get worse. The second is the infrastructure problem I mentioned, which is the online job boards have been overwhelmed with AI in a bad way.
Mhm.
So today you can get a bot that will go scan the internet, the entire internet for all the jobs, and it will apply on your behalf for every job that's out there. It will write a customized resume and a customized cover letter. And so instead of in the old days, when you would apply for a job, it was like I had to write a cover letter, I had to tweak my resume. It like took a couple of hours per resume that you sent out. Now I can send out thousands of resumes practically with the push of a button. So the result is that employers are being flooded with thousands and thousands of applications, many of which are bots, frauds, people who are actually not in the job market anymore, but they just applied to thousands of jobs, but they might have gotten a job a long time ago. So the job matching infrastructure in the country is broken, which is why even though we don't have enough workers, we still have 7.5 million unfilled jobs in the country.
Mhm. Companies also use AI to select applicants, so they not necessarily some of them, not all of them, but those companies who use AI maybe don't spend so much time selecting
100%.
applications.
When you're getting, instead of getting 40 applications for a job, you get 2,000. You have to use, and employers are using AI bots themselves to review. So you get bots applying for jobs and bots reviewing the job,
Mhm.
which is why the whole system is starting to break down.
Yes, I even wrote an article about this, why maybe we should return to in-person selection. So, because if you want to make a quality selection, you have to see that person, you have to talk yourself, not a robot with the candidate.
I totally agree,
Otherwise,
Danielle. Here's the problem that the employers are facing on that. I totally agree that would be the solution. The employers we've talked to say that once they get through all of this screening down, so they get their thousands of resume applications to them, they use AI or whatever else to narrow it down, and they want to talk to the people in person. And so they'll set up a day or two of maybe 8 interviews, 8 to 10 interviews for a particular job position. They'll schedule them in every half hour, and they make the appointments. As many as 3/4 of the people don't even show. So out of your 10 interviews, maybe 2 of them will even show up because they're not real people. The appointments were made by
Yes.
AI, so they don't
Yes.
exist. So employers have the right motivation, just as you suggest. They should, and they want to do it. But because the system is so overwhelmed with the bots, they can't actually get real people to show up for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what I mean. The infrastructure is broken.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I agree. What about the massive layoffs that are happening right now, this year's even, and the what I read in media about young people also have difficulties in finding jobs. So there are available jobs, as you said, but somehow people can't get those jobs.
Yeah, there are a couple pieces in your question. The first one is the AI impact on jobs. That's a real issue, but it affects a relatively specific kind of job and a relatively small number of jobs, which is entry level, white collar, kind of professional workers. Like that's where AI is
Yes.
really starting to eat up jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not a huge part of the population. I mean, if you think about only 30% of the, or about a third of the population goes to college and gets a college degree anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
we're immediately not talking about 2/3 of the population. And then you're talking about, a relatively small number of, and I'm not saying it's not a problem, but college grads, relatively recent college grads who are going to professional jobs like consulting and HR and stuff like that. Those are areas where AI is starting to need jobs. So Pivoters is actually focused in particular on frontline jobs, like not the high end high paying executive white collar jobs. Those people actually are more likely to have saved for retirement. We're focused on the 90% of people who are frontline workers, are willing to do kind of almost any kind of job because they need the money, they want the
Mm-hmm.
social interaction, all those other benefits I talked about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what can employers do to change this tendency to avoid considering older people for jobs? What
Yeah.
your platform do and what people can do in general to eliminate this tendency bias, of course.
Yeah. So the first thing they need to do is change their biases. So they need to sort of do a little self-introspecting, and then they need to do a little bit of business analysis. And when they do that, I think they will realize that workers above 55 are workers they should be trying to hire, not trying to avoid hiring, which is currently what they're doing. And there's a few reasons for that. Workers in that age group so there's actually kind of 3 myths that I like to talk about relating
Yes.
to workers in that age group. So one of them is that they're going to quit. Like you talk to HR people and they say, I don't want to hire a 60-year-old. They're going to work for 2 years and they're going to quit. Completely wrong and the opposite is true. The average tenure for people in their 60s getting a new job versus people in their 20s is almost 3.5 times longer. A person over 55 is likely to work for almost 10 years. This is statistics, it's not me making it up.
Mhm.
People under 30 or in that age group work for about 2.8 years, much, much shorter. So if you're worried about you're going to hire somebody and they're going to quit in 2 years, that's the 20-year-old. The 20-year-old or the 20 something, I should say, not the 20-year-old, the 20 something. Like they're looking for the next thing. They want to move on. They're like, they got a little ants in their pants,
They
whatever.
want to advance, but the
They
older
want to
people don't
advance.
look
They
for
get
for this.
bored. Exactly. They want to move on. So the idea that you're worried somebody's going to quit, if you're worried somebody's going to quit, you want to hire a pivoter. We call them pivoters, the people over 55.
Hmm.
Second is they don't understand technology. They're nervous about technology. This was a pre-AI attitude. So pre-AI technology was hard and you had to You needed to know programming and menus and all that stuff. AI now, all you need to do is know how to speak. You talk to the AI, it does it for you. I mean, you're talking about technology, on the job technology. You can do programming just by talking. You do, if you want to have a programmer, you have vibe coding. You just talk to, you don't need to know how to program in Python with lines of code anymore. And so the skill that's really important now in the AI era is being able to understand the nuances of what a job requires, of what a task requires, and being able to articulate it and then to give further instructions. That's a skill that people in their 60s have, not a skill that people in their 20s and 30s have. They've been on the job, they know how to formulate tasks, how to express them, get them done. And then you do that, you tell the AI, and the AI will do it for you. So it's actually now a plus. This kind of technology experience is an area now where pivoters have an advantage. And the last one is that the people in that age group, they're not really into their jobs. They don't want to work that hard. They don't really love being at the job.
Mhm.
Also not true. The happiest cohort of any age cohort in the workplace are people 55 and over. They like being at the job. They're grateful to have a job. They like to go to work. They like the social interaction. And most importantly, I think they understand that the purpose of the job is to help the employer. The purpose of a job is not, as most 20 and 30 somethings think, about their career development and their personal development and self-fulfillment. When you're
Mhm.
60s, you got to get like, that's not really what work is about. Work is about getting stuff done that helps the organization where you work. And so
Mhm.
that's why these people are happier. And if you're happier on the job, it's a virtuous cycle because when you're happy and you have a few pivoters in your workplace are happy, they lift the spirits of everybody else in the workplace. And suddenly the whole workplace, the morale goes up. And when the morale goes up, there's lots of studies that say when you have high morale at a workplace, it's more productive, it's more efficient, your kind of return on investment for your workforce is much higher. So hiring pivoters also has great business benefits.
Mhm. Right. Yes. Happy people, happy business in a way.
Right. You want happy workers.
From what you saw, do these older people look for jobs in their field where they have experience, or they are open to all kinds of jobs?
So for what I'm working on, as I mentioned, I'm working on people who are in frontline positions. They're in not highly special. I'm not trying to help, VPs of advertising or lawyers find jobs. I mean, they will be on the platform, but they're a
Mhm.
teeny piece of the overall workforce. So the most people in the world, they start jobs they get trained pretty quickly, in a day, between a day and a couple of weeks on the job. Like it's part of the
Mhm.
onboarding. They learn there. They're not super particular, especially pivoters. They're just happy to be working. They're not super particular about, oh, I've always been in this field. I only want to be in this field. In fact, it's often the case that they've been in a career for 20 years. They've been doing kind of similar jobs for a long time, and they want to try something new. They've got all these other great soft skills. They're good with tasks and people and managing time and learning new skills and all these things, but they'd like a little bit of a change.
Mhm.
And so they're happy pivoting, which is part of the reason we picked that name, Pivoters.
Mhm. And they already prove themselves. They already prove that they can do some things, and they don't, as you said, they look for growth or development in career.
Yeah, that's right. They're there to get their work done, do a really good job. They're happy doing it, and then they go home and come back the next day.
Mhm. How can those who are interested in finding jobs and have this age can use your platform, and how also employers can use the platform?
Yeah, so the platform is designed for both employees and employers. Uh, for the employers first, it's the first really going to be the first really AI native platform. So the existing platforms that are out there, most of them were developed, the big ones, decades ago, and their technology is decades old. They've done something to bolt on a little bit of AI, kind of the advanced technology. But when you look at them and you use them, you feel like, wow, I'm using technology from, the year 2000 or something. So Pivoters is going to be is going to be designed to really maximize the use of AI to make the job of the employer much faster, more efficient, easier. And so the platform itself will do a lot of screening for you, and it will only tee up people, and it will tee them up one at a time. You can keep having more and looking at more, but who are the best matched ones on the whole platform. So rather than have employees in a giant fire hose apply for jobs, pivoters will tee up just the right people for you using really smart AI matching technology to get them. So they go on, they sign up on it as an employer. They say, I want to find somebody immediately, assuming they're not in some very small market, they'll get somebody teed up that is the perfectly optimized person for their job. Sort of similar on the employee side. We will go through the onboarding process with you. You don't have a resume, it's not a problem. We can make a resume. A lot of people who are pivoter aged people might have been in their job for 25 years. They haven't made a resume in 25 years, and that's a very intimidating idea. So we walk you through with questions. And at the end, if you want the resume, you can have it, you can print it, whatever. And so it's meant to be very simple for both sides.
So the platform match those who look for jobs and those who hire.
That's right. And one of the things we do that I think is another big advantage is we do a lot of focus on the soft skills. So it's what's your work style? Do you want to work in a group? You know, are you really sort of detail oriented? Are you big picture? All these kind of things that are important for an employer to know if somebody matches their job. We use AI to kind of interview you, get some stories, and then we can use those. AI is really good at using that kind of unstructured data to find the right match between the employee and the employer.
I'm sure that older people appreciate your efforts and the platform because it makes things easier for them. And I hope that employers also are open to hire older people because, as you say, there are many advantages, and they can bring that good energy and make the environment better. Is there something that you would like to add?
Well, the only thing I want to add is, this age group it's probably the biggest gap between what they have to offer and what they bring to a workplace. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of employers. They will make your workplace better. They will increase your productivity. They will raise your morale. They will stay longer in their job. And so the first and biggest step, and it's part of like my mission for the company, is changing attitudes about these pivoter aged people. They are going to be your best workers on average. I'm not saying every individual, but on average, they're going to be better workers for your company. And so people need to get over their 100-year-old bias, or their 100-year-old created bias that people should be quitting at 65. They shouldn't. They have, decade and a half more of great work, and companies need to recognize it, and it'll be great for the companies, but then overall, it'll be great for the economy. It'll be a big boost to the American economy.
For sure. And I hope that things will change slowly but surely. I
Me
hope.
too. We need to catch people up to the 21st century.
Yes, I will put the link to your platform in the show notes. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Scott.
Okay. Thanks, Danielle. It's great talking to you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you found value in this podcast, subscribe to stay updated. I'm grateful for your support and hope to continue providing content that helps you grow. See you in the next episode.